Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the September 12th Board of Selectmen meeting, both in person and via Zoom, as usual. And we will start it off again with the Pledge of Allegiance, as we do every week. And then also I ask that you remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. And please, if you can remain standing just for a moment of silence for Greenwich resident Will Salibi, who grew up here in town and was tragically killed a few days ago. Will was known to many people here, a great family in town that's volunteered for many decades. And so we keep his family and him in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of August 27th, 2024?
Lauren Rabin, so moved.
Janet Stone McWigan, I second.
All those in favor? Fred Camillo is a yes.
Lauren Rabin, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan, yes.
Thank you. And is there a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of August 27th, 2024?
Lauren Rabin, so moved.
Janet Stone McWigan, I second.
All those in favor? Fred Camillo is a yes.
Lauren Rabin, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan, yes.
Okay, thanks so much. I'll get through the first Selectmen's updates as quickly as I can. We don't have a big agenda today, but I think lots of people want to speak, so, and we do have a presentation, so we'll get right to it. There is another cleanup in one of our parks this weekend. Tom McKinney again, I think he's making the rounds for every one of our parks. It's from 2 to 4. If you're interested in going out and helping clean up a park, it's Binney Park from 2 to 4 this Saturday. Monday at 10 a.m., we're going to be raising the Mexican flag here, Mexican Independence Day, so that's at 10 o'clock. On Tuesday at 9 o'clock, we're going to be having I think it's 11 o'clock. 1 o'clock on Tuesday, we're going to be having the Greenwich Service Awards, the Town of Greenwich Service Awards in here. It's always a fun day to recognize those who serve us every single day. On the 17th at 3 o'clock, I'll be doing a proclamation for Mothers for Others. It's a group here in town. They do really good work. Been doing it for many years. 6 o'clock on Wednesday, be at the Bellhaven Club for the Greenwich Historical Society's annual awards, and I think they're recognizing Susie Baker this year, I believe.
Yes.
On the 19th, we're going to be doing a ribbon cutting for Corcoran Centric Realty over on Mason Street. So looking forward to that. We're also doing another ribbon cutting on the 20th of which is a Friday. That's at 12 o'clock at 109 Greenwich Avenue for Greenwich Brewery. So I know that a lot of people are looking forward to that. On the 21st at 8:30, I'll be speaking at Christ Church at the Tomes Higgins House. And then at 10 o'clock, we're going to have a memorial service here in town at First Presbyterian for Russ Harden, who just recently passed and was a longtime volunteer here in town. 1 o'clock that day, I'll be going over to salute Reverend Felix Gerard Delator, who's retiring from the Bethel AME church over there at, I think it's 44 Lake Avenue. So we'll be thanking the Reverend for his service here to our town. That's also the same day as Valley Jam, and for those of you on the western side of town, that's all day long. So we're looking forward to that, and I guess a few of us are going to get dunked again in the tank, so hopefully it's going to be nice and warm. My luck, it'll be freezing.
Speak for yourself.
And then Sunday, the 22nd, is Adopt a Dog. So they have their Putting on the Dog annual event. It's a great show there. And if you're looking for a dog in the market or just want to take your dog there, it's a fun day. And at 12 o'clock, I'm going to be presenting a proclamation to Pet Pantry for all they do for our town. Monday, the 23rd, at 11 o'clock, we'll be with Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz on Greenwich Avenue, announcing a grant that we have for pedestrian safety, not too far from this building. Very excited about that. The focus continues on pedestrian and public safety here in town, and that's another grant that the town applied for and received. And then at 4 o'clock that day, I'll be with Senator Fazio at the Greenwich train station as he's doing a medal ceremony for our veterans here in town. So that will be at 4 o'clock on the 23rd. And also, we'll be updating everybody on the Korean War ceremony we're going to have to honor those who fought in the Korean War. The Lieutenant Governor and I our officers are in contact, trying just getting all the information from those who served in the war to us so we can recognize them just as we did with the Vietnam veterans last year. So with that, I will turn it over to Lauren.
Thanks, Fred. Good morning, everyone. I see a lot of new faces. Nice to see people in the audience. I'm not usually the one that announces events, but also on the 21st of September, there's a cleanup, Greenwich Green and cleanup at Todd's Point, so before Valley Jam. And I'm not going in any dunk tanks, Fred. Speaking of pedestrian safety, maybe about 8 months ago, we did have the Round Hill Association come to a Board of Selectmen meeting and talk about some traffic measures and pedestrian safety measures. And I know that we've been meeting with them individually this week. So that'll be on our radar to see if any of those recommendations that they're asking for can be something that we implement. With respect to the Selectmen's Nomination Advisory Committee, one of the things that we need to think about, we passed some materials that our ADA committee would not just be a first Selectman committee, but it would be a Board of Selectmen committee. So one of the things that we're going to need to discuss is how do we want to go about putting people in spots, appointing that committee, because there are people serving on it already. And part of what we're going to do is just have some, terms and expirations and things of that nature. And then with respect to SNAC, we have purchased with a joint purchase with the town clerk software to make our whole nomination and selection process more digital. Right now, we do a lot of Excel spreadsheets and emailing and things of that nature. So that's moving along. We have all of our volunteers that are on a board commissioner committee in the software. We have all our boards, expiration dates, and we're working very closely with the vice chair of the RTM Appointments Committee, because ultimately the people that we nominate eventually go to the RTM for full appointment. So it's very exciting to get into the current century from a technology standpoint and leave a legacy for everybody that follows that can, do the process in a most streamlined way. And we hope to have everything live and up and running by the end of September. So that's my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning. And I know we are past Labor Day because our calendars are exploding. So just a few more additions to our updates. On Wednesday, the 18th, there will be a lights out presentation given by our planning and zoning department. That will be by Zoom at 10 o'clock. On Thursday, the 19th, at 7 o'clock in the Cone Room, this board, jointly with the Greenwich newcomers, will be hosting a Greenwich Town Hall 101. We invite the public to come and learn what your elected officials, professional staff, and dedicated volunteers do to serve you. And I'm going to add to Lauren's announcement, on Saturday the 21st, there will be the International Coastal Cleanup at Greenwich Point. That's 9 to 1. And then I have, on behalf of the Julian Curtis School Building Committee, I have a very brief update that says the building committee remains hard at work maintaining progress toward our phased approach of modernizing Julian Curtis School. As a reminder, the scope of the JC project was narrowed from the original ed specs to a series of 4 phases to address ADA and other key aspects of the school. Phases 1 and 2 are fully designed, with construction documents now out for bid, with expectations of a contractor being selected in the coming weeks. These phases, which have MI and P&Z approval, include an elevator for ADA, upgrading bathrooms and other ADA facilities, a new and secure front entrance as well as ramp and ADA parking. The majority of this construction should be complete next summer. The building committee is now actively turning its attention to phase 3 of the project, which is to modernize the cafeteria to ensure its compliance with ADA, as well as making it functional for the school due to its small size and old construction and acoustics. The expectation is the design work for this phase will be completed during the school year, with bids going out next summer for completion in the summer of 2026. The final phase of the project will be finishing touches to be clarified as the initial phases are further underway. Given the age of the building, there might be some surprises and discoveries along the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Janet. Okay,
Actually, before we begin, if I could just remind everyone, because we had some latecomers, if you are going to speak on anything, please sign the sign-in sheet. And I have 2 people on Zoom who have let me know in advance they're going to speak, so we will recognize them. But anyone who wishes to speak, please sign the sign-in sheet. Thank you.
I'll get those. Okay, thank you. So under old business, there is none, which is good. So we're going to go on to new business. First up is a request for an amendment to Traffic Ordinance Schedule XXD, which I want to say is 520, but I'll leave it alone at XXD. Weight restricted streets. And Ian Brown is here, our civil engineer from DPW.
This way or the audience?
However you prefer.
Yeah.
The select would probably be your audience for this one, I would imagine.
Do we have an Yeah. I think, Ian, you could probably turn around for the audience because we have a couple of, thanks. Appreciate it. Good morning, Ian.
Morning, guys. It's good to see you all.
Good to see you too.
My name is Ian Brown. I'm an engineer with the Department of Public
Is
Works.
the microphone on, Ian?
You want me to repeat that?
No, it's fine. Thank you.
You got a deep voice. That's good.
Yeah, it's nice and loud, so I barely even need this thing. So, as part of an ongoing effort to improve pedestrian safety in the Byram neighborhood, the DPW is requesting an ordinance amendment for William Street and Veterans Way. Specifically, we are requesting a new 4-ton weight limit on William Street from Meade Avenue and Veterans Way, and a new 4-ton weight limit on Veterans Way spanning the full length of the roadway. These are local roads with tight turning movements that are incompatible with larger vehicles and large trucks. We have received several complaints regarding trucks rolling over curbs along these roadways, particularly at the intersection of Veterans Way and Delavan Avenue. This obviously poses an issue for pedestrian safety. We also have had 2 crosswalk signs struck by turning trucks at this same intersection. Weight limit signage is not out of the ordinary for this neighborhood. In fact, similar 4-ton weight limit signage already exists on Meade Avenue and parts of William Street and Church Street, and that's the area highlighted in red on the map that I've provided. We are hoping that these changes will redirect truck traffic and larger vehicles to more suitable roadways like Delavan Avenue and Mill Street to the north. That's it. I'll keep it brief. Thank you guys for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And having lived in that neighborhood before and having heard some of the same complaints, be interested to see in the next 2 weeks what we hear for this proposal from the residents there. But I've heard the same things and have seen the same things that you all have seen. So I think it's a good thing. But we'll wait to on a second read. We'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks and see if we can incorporate any thoughts and questions into that.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Alexander wishes to speak on that unless the selectmen have anything.
Sure. Thank you, Ian. Is it about this issue?
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, Peter.
Hi, Peter Alexander, and I'd really like to support that, and hopefully it'll be the first of many. Let's go for it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. Okay, second up is a proposed ordinance to address the feral cat situation over in the town of Greenwich, over in Old Greenwich. And our town attorney, Barbara Schellenberg's here. Good morning, Barbara.
Good morning. So in response to the board's request and to address concerns with cats, particularly feral cats, causing nuisance, damage to property, and unsanitary conditions, we have a draft ordinance for your consideration. This ordinance was patterned after a couple of other municipal ordinances that have been adopted in other municipalities in Connecticut, which in turn is patterned after General Statute Section 339D, which specifically allows municipalities to adopt this kind of ordinance. We try to make it as comprehensive as possible, and I'm certainly happy to answer any questions or concerns you may have.
Thank you so much for doing this, and we really appreciate, the timeliness of it. And I am in total agreement. The one part that I may want to voice an objection to in the ordinance is if within such period any cat is not claimed by or released by the owner or keeper or purchased by as a pet, the animal control officer shall cause such cat to be mercifully killed or licensed by a licensed veterinarian. I'd love to avoid that. I spent most of my life in animal welfare rescuing, and I get I get why it's in there, and sometimes that's necessary. But if we could at all avoid that, because that's not why we're doing this. We're doing it, for the animals to find them a proper place, because this is not how they should be kept, and also for the residents there to give them a break, as you said, for what was the damage that was going on there. So that's the only concern I have.
Okay.
I don't know about my colleagues. Everything else is fine, I think.
Well, I'm just going to join and say thank you for all the work that has gone into this. Absolutely. This is a public health issue that we absolutely need to address. We also want to do it as humanely as possible. I live in Old Greenwich, so, it hits close to home. And thank you for confirming. I was going to ask about that this is consistent with the powers that are enabled by state legislation. Okay.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes,
okay.
a lot of the language in here is taken directly from the state statute.
Right. I just wondered, could we, for the benefit of our listeners, could we kind of spell out what exactly would this ordinance allow us to do that we can't already do?
Sure. So basically, it defines what a feral cat is and what a keeper of feral cats is. So that is clear. And also domestic cats, because this would cover nuisances caused by any kind of cat. I mean, the impotence for it is feral cats, but, it covers any cat that's causing a problem. So consistent with what the statute allows under Section 6E3 regulations, it provides that within 1 year of the adoption of this ordinance, a keeper of feral cats within the town shall register with the animal control officer for the town. And then when the keeper registers, the animal control officer needs to provide information to the keeper regarding the proper care and management of those cats, and also that the keeper of the feral cats has to provide for the vaccination of the cats against rabies, and also for the sterilization of the cats. And then it also goes on to say that a keeper shall be considered an eligible owner for purposes of the Animal Population Control Program, and that's a statutory scheme that deals, as the title says, with animal population control. Specifically, the state has an account, particularly to help people who are of lower income or rescue operations to provide for sterilization, vaccination, that kind of thing. And there's a lot more to it, but the keepers would specifically come within that section of the statute. And then importantly, 64 specifically addresses protection of property, making clear that no person who owns or keeps a cat shall permit that animal to substantially damage property of other owners or cause an unsanitary, dangerous, or unreasonably offensive condition. And again, all of that comes directly from the statute. It then goes on to have a lot more provisions dealing with impoundment. One of them, as the first selectman just said, he's objecting to, but to try to deal with the situation, what happens after the animal control officer has impounded these cats, to deal with that situation. So goes through specifically how there should be advertising to see if somebody can claim these cats, what happens if they are not claimed. There are specific fees that are provided, and ultimately penalties that are also provided, more severe penalties for people who have been found to have these cats, own these cats, or be a keeper of feral cats that have caused damage to other people's property or unsanitary conditions. So that's a summary of what's in here. And it also provides for an effective date that the ordinance will become effectively immediately upon adoption by the RTM, assuming that the RTM does adopt the ordinance.
Right, thank you. And
I have a
we're, the Humane Society of the United States reached out to me, a rep there, about the part that I had a concern about, to work with us on that. So
Okay.
we could, maybe replace that with something else there. And so the people who may be here for this item, the RTM usually does a second read. So we hope to get it to them by for the October meeting, even if we vote on this, we vote on it in 2 weeks. They don't meet in November, so this would be taken up in December. So that's when they would do this, in December. And that's a second read like we're doing here. We do second reads unless there's a time-sensitive issue. And I could tell you the RTM will take that second read on this.
Right. And the good news, though, is if this board does the second read, that's not going to hold up getting it to the RTM for the October meeting. So that's not an issue.
Thank you. Yes,
So I just have more of a question, and I understand the time period before a cat is mercifully killed. The concept of a license tag, and maybe I should know this, but like people that own a cat that's not feral, they don't get a cat tag or cat license. So is this... It's just confusing to me that only feral cats would have some sort of tag license, although do cats own domestically that aren't feral? Do we license or tag them? I don't know.
no, we don't
I
tag feral
I don't
cats.
believe so. I think it's,
I didn't think so.
trying to deal with the situation once the cat has been impounded.
I wonder if it leads to sort of tagging and licensing non-feral cats.
I suppose it could. Yeah, I mean, that is something we could address.
I can see people, the camel's nose under the tent. There they go again. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
Yeah, so again, we're happy to listen to whatever feedback comes, not only from the board, but in the community the next couple of weeks, and make any modifications that the board feels is necessary.
Yeah, that is not the intent. The intent is not to sneak, tagging cats, non-feral cats, wasn't even on our radar, so, but thank you, this is a lot of work.
Right, again, our purpose here was to make this comprehensive when we were looking at what other municipalities had done, but that doesn't mean there can't be modifications that are appropriate for this town.
I do have a few more questions. But thank you for clarifying the timeline and explaining that this will go to the should this pass this board, that it will go to the RTM. Two immediate questions after you just walked through the proposal. One is, do we want to wait for 1 year after the adoption of this ordinance before keepers would have to register? I mean,
That's the statute requires, the 1
okay.
year.
All right. Well, then,
So
that
that's a good
answers that.
question,
That
but,
answers
but
that.
that's why it's in there.
And then I would just like, point of information to clarify what does happen when an animal is impounded. I do appreciate, don't ask me to put down an animal. I can't, but, there are times when that is the appropriate thing to do, and I'm just wondering what is the current practice?
I don't know what the current practice is. I mean, that's where, certainly if
it's a
we
needle.
could
It's
hear from
usually-
the animal control officer,
Yeah,
that would be helpful.
unfortunately, I've been through it a lot. It's a needle.
No, I'm not asking the method. I'm asking what do you do when an animal is impounded and no one comes forward to adopt it?
Well,
That's what I'm
So
asking.
the rep from U.S. Humane Society reached out to me. She goes, I have an idea about that. So we're going to talk probably later today. Yeah, and there are times, unfortunately, where they have to be put down. But if we can avoid that here, I would like to do it because that's not the purpose of this at all.
Right. I think we're distinguishing between the situation where a cat might be diseased or badly injured versus a healthy animal, and those are different sections in 6E5, so.
And we
yeah,
did that, the
can-
Buddy's Law that I wrote for the German Shepherd that was killed by the owner 10 or 12 years ago. We put those exceptions in there, exigent circumstances, law enforcement, the animals dying and suffering. So there are exceptions to that it's humane. So.
Okay, we'll definitely take a look at those.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
You're welcome.
We do have
Somebody
some
wanted to
people
speak on-
online, yes. I'm going to recognize Ms. Eileen Grasso on this. Eileen, can you please unmute?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, thank you.
Okay, good. Eileen Grasso, I live on Shore Road in Old Greenwich. I am about 3 houses away from a neighbor that has allowed a feral cat population to develop, and we were the first people to sort of initiate some action on this. And there's 2 things. One is, it sounds as though that statute, so I have a question and a statement. The statute sounds, I'm curious about what happens to someone who doesn't follow this rule, because it sounds like you're asking people to register their feral cats, and then they have the expense of the registration, the expense and inconvenience of having the cat neutered, which is a real disincentive to the kind of people who would allow a feral cat population to grow in their home and in their neighborhood. So I'm not sure you're motivating anyone to fix this problem. And then the second thing is, I'm really happy that you're initiating a statute that could bring some order to this. But I have to say, we're sort of being held hostage to this process. You need to understand there are something on the order of 15 cats right now, and this is after there have been several cats and kittens trapped. Our neighbors have all been cooperating in establishing feeding routines so that we can attract the cats in a way that they can be quickly taken by animal control. but that has been very sporadic and it has really come to a complete grinding halt. In the meantime, you should know that cats' gestation period for pregnancy is 60 days, and a cat can get pregnant as young as 4 months. So while we're attempting to put measures in place to prevent this problem from happening in our communities, it's a two-pronged effort because we need to intervene now, quickly, and most importantly, we need to do it completely. Because picking up 1 or 2 cats or 2 or 3 kittens that can be easily adopted is not effective. If you don't get the entire population within 3 to 6 months, you'll have another doubling, tripling. They grow exponentially. And we've even seen just over the past 2 or 3 months since we've brought this to the attention of the town of Greenwich, we've got more kittens that are appearing on, someone just posted on Nextdoor, a couple of houses down, another kitten found. So I would really want to emphasize while you're putting this all together, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of thoughtful input to make this statute enforceable and meaningful, I really think there needs to be an intervention to put a stop to the situation that we're currently experiencing in this neighborhood.
Thank you, Eileen. I appreciate your thoughts. Just one comment. The process is what it is. We can't tell the RTM what to do. We can go there and ask them to do it on the first read, but I doubt that's going to happen. And again, it's entirely up to them. That's not within our jurisdiction here. So, but as far as anything else, offline, we can talk, and I could talk with the town attorney and GPD if, there's any exigent circumstances going on that maybe this doesn't cover. But the reason why we're doing this, because there is no ordinance. So I know it's not as quick as some would like, but I think we're doing this as quickly as possible. And we've responded ASAP to this. So thank you again for your comments.
Fred, I understand that, and I'm respectful of that process. What I'm saying is that our taxpayer dollars are funding animal control, and animal control is unable to keep pace with what's happening in our neighborhood and over on Park Avenue and Highview, which is having a similar problem. I think ours is a little bit worse. So I don't know if that's an RTM issue. I don't know how that gets resolved.
Again, minus an ordinance, we just can't do things. I mean, there's a process for things. And so again, I'll talk with the town attorney after and see if there's anything we can do in addition to this ordinance. But, we're talking about ordinances in other areas too in town, as recent as a couple nights ago, because we don't have an ordinance to address certain issues, and there's always resistance to that, but, that's the reason why we bring this stuff up. And so I thank you for bringing it to our attention, and we're moving as quickly as we can on it.
Can I just ask for a clarification? Because Ms. Grazzo asked what would compel a keeper to register feral cats, and the way I read the ordinance, there would be fines levied if someone did not.
No, she's raising a valid point. I think the issue comes down to when you look at the statute, subsection A deals specifically with the registration within 1 year of the adoption of the ordinance and the requirement for vaccination and sterilization. Subsection B then specifically addresses a municipality adopting an ordinance providing that no person owning or keeping any cat shall permit such animal to damage property or cause an unsanitary, dangerous condition. And it is only in that section of the statute that it says violation of such provision shall be an infraction. And I think that's why in the ordinances that we looked at, the penalties were for the damage to property or causing an unsanitary condition. It appears that the statute isn't allowing for penalties just because somebody doesn't register. Now, that doesn't mean that the animal control officer, couldn't take certain actions, obviously, if there's a problem, or warnings couldn't be issued, that kind of thing. But it does seem that the legislature did not intend for monetary penalties or fines to be imposed for that particular violation. So.
Thank you, Barbara.
All right, Pam, I will allow you to speak now. If you could unmute, Pam.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First of all, I totally agree with
Can you just identify
Eileen.
yourself for the record, please, Pam?
This is Pam Petito. Hello?
Go ahead, Pam.
I agree with Eileen that waiting a year would be a catastrophe. And, animal control is trapping cats right now. We're just saying maybe they could have some temporary help or allocate some funds to help in being able to capture more cats, because 2 or 3 a month is just, it's just not going to make a difference. They caught, I think, 6 cats on my property in the last month. 3 of them were pregnant. It was quiet around here for about 3 weeks, which was great. And the other night, 4 small kittens came across my patio. And last night, I got on my camera, I saw another pregnant female cross my patio. So it just kind of never ends. Then I also have a question regarding the 1-year adoption of the chapter. In the town of North Haven, theirs states within 6 months of adoption of this article. And that's under, I guess, number 102-7, responsibilities of keepers for North Haven. And then I also read in one of the other towns where they did not include a time limit or constraint. So I just wondered if maybe we could revisit that 1-year time constraint.
Okay, Pam, thank you for both of those points. On the first one, we will reach out to animal control and GPD and have coordinate, because it's under their jurisdiction, to see if they could step up efforts in the time being. And if it's going to be more money, then certainly we'll check to see if there's anything left in the OFS budget. But we hear what you're saying there. And again, I feel for the cats, because they're not, the people who are doing this, hoarding the cats, are not doing any favors to the animals. They think they are, but they're not. So we'll definitely look into that. And then the North Haven one, the 6 months, Barbara Schellenberg.
Yeah, I certainly can't speak to why a municipality decided to do what it did, but the statute specifically says, and I'm quoting, "A municipality may adopt an ordinance requiring the registration within 1 year of the adoption of such ordinance of keepers of feral cats in residential or commercial areas." That's why
Okay.
It may.
the
but-
ordinances
Right.
we looked at, had the 1 year. I think that's very clear from the statute, that you can't require a shorter period of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I did notice it on most of them, but for some reason, North Haven was only 6 months. And like I said, I did see one other that didn't have a time constraint. But I have another question. When does that 1 year apply, for example, to my neighbors? Because when animal control was over there, they stated they weren't their cats. However, they may be feeding them, it's hard to tell. So if they said they are not their cats, do we still have to wait a year, or are we able to go over there and start trapping?
Well, in terms of this ordinance, if it is adopted by the RTM, it would become effective immediately, so it would be within 1 year of the adoption of the ordinance that the provisions would apply.
And I think if Pam, correct me.
No,
So-
I'm sorry, let me correct that. It would only be 1 year that the registration would be required, but the other aspects of the ordinance would go into effect immediately. In other words, if somebody is harboring a cat, whether it's an owner or a keeper, I believe whether that person is registered or not, that animal does not have the right to just go and damage property or cause unsanitary or unsafe conditions. So again, the 1 year applies to registration only. That's how I read it, not everything else.
Also, if
Okay,
the
well-
person says they don't own the cat and are just feeding it, there'd be no reason that animal control couldn't impound, I don't think that's the right word, capture, if nobody's claiming.
Yeah.
Right,
agree.
again, animal control is currently acting, from what I'm hearing, and has the right to do so before adoption of this ordinance. This ordinance just simply puts more restrictions and requirements and penalties in place.
Understood.
Yeah, thank you for the
Yeah.
clarification.
Right. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm thinking this along the same lines as my colleague, that even before an ordinance is passed, if someone who is harboring these cats is claiming that they are not the owners, that they're not responsible, then it would seem to me that animal control has the wherewithal to come in and do what they do with stray cats.
Yeah, I believe that's correct,
Yeah, okay.
sure.
Yeah, and they also, the animal control also asked if they could, this was at least a year ago, I think, trap, neuter, and release, and they would not cooperate. So they won't cooperate with animal control, and they did say they are not their cats. So in the meantime, we're dealing with damage to our property, and you've heard the whole story. I don't need to repeat it, but it's just not fair to us that we have to put up with that, and they won't cooperate at all. And then the other thing is really animal control, they're doing their best, but they just can't keep up with it. And I had cats and my mother had cats. I love animals, but trap, neuter, release is not going to solve the problem that all of my neighbors and I are having with the damage to our property. It just won't. They need to be removed. I mean, we've spent quite a bit of money replacing cushions and covers and trying to, put the different devices to keep them away, and none of it is working. So the sooner the better. It's been over 4 years. That's quite a long time.
Understood. Thank you, Pam.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Barbara.
All right, Heidi, you can please identify yourself for the record. This is the final signed-up speaker on this issue for Zoom.
Thank you very much. My name is Heidi Shafranik. I also live here on Shore Road. I want to thank the Board of Selectmen actually for the speed with which the matter's been addressed, because I wasn't expecting to even hear the first reading today. So I'm very impressed. But I do have one question about Section 6E3C. When it talks about the period of time between when the cat is actually registered with the animal control officer and then until it's sterilized and vaccinated, is there a time period that can be specified about when that happens? Because if it's a whole year until they have to register, and then if they take another year until they actually get it vaccinated or something or sterilized, that doesn't seem to make sense. So I didn't know if there was any specification in any of the other ordinances in other municipalities that acted as a template for this particular one.
Thanks, Heidi. I would think Barbara Schellenberg is going to respond, but they have to do it within the year. So, I mean, they can't, the way I read this, they couldn't go into a second year of not doing it.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
and the answer to your question is we didn't see a specific time period for what's in here as Section 63, subsection C, but I don't see why we couldn't put in a time period there. So in other words, the 1 year only relates to the registration. But, you know, I don't see why we couldn't have some reasonable time period, you know, to have to do everything else that's required.
But
Thank you.
wouldn't that be already spelled out? Because, I mean, you're right, the 1 year is just a keeper registering.
Right.
Right? Once a stray cat is impounded, I mean, animal control must have a process for what they do, you know, because if no one claims the cat or the cat's not adopted, I would think that there's a process that usually they spay or neuter the cat and then put it up for adoption, so.
Well, I think what the regulations are trying to address here, you know, not in every situation is a cat, even a feral cat, necessarily going to be damaging property or causing an unsanitary, unsafe condition. So it's trying to nip that in the bud by saying you have to register. When you register, the animal control officer has to give you information then on the proper care and management of the cats, and then you have to vaccinate them and sterilize them. You know, and if they do all that, then maybe there's not going to be a problem for neighbors. So I think that's what those regulations are trying to address. So we could, if the board wants, you know, to have some, I mean, whether we want to say within a reasonable time period or, you know, after receiving the information or within a month or, you know, whatever might be considered reasonable, we could add that to the ordinance, for example. And then the rest of it deals with a situation where these cats are causing a problem, right? So there's kind of two separate things this is dealing with.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
I had a comment that I just wanted to, I agree with both the comments that Pam and Eileen had made. Eileen was talking about sort of a time sensitivity issue with this whole situation with the cats being able to begin having litters at the age of 4 to 6 months, but they can also have 3 litters a year and up to 8 kittens per litter. So even if a neighbor starts out with 2 kittens, that grows exponentially very quickly. And I think that's why we're seeing so many cats. So I'm hoping that with the adoption of the ordinance, I'm hoping everybody does agree and approves it and things so that it does give animal control the authority to enter the property and the resources to trap and to trap frequently so that the problem can be resolved in a humane way. And I hope the ordinance finds agreement among you and will be treated with the same expediency by the RTM. And if I could just add, feral cats sound scary, but they can make great pets. So if anybody wants to adopt a cat from animal control, you know, they're lovely. Cats are cats. So.
Heidi, thank you so much, and thanks for all your advocacy. And you're correct about the feral cats. I'm a dog person, but I have 2 feral cats in my house. It was not my call, but I've gotten to love them, and they're fine. But yeah, you could definitely do that. So anyway, I appreciate that, and we've heard you loud and clear, and we'll certainly incorporate your thoughts today and work on this over the next couple weeks. Thank you so much. And thank you, Barbara. Okay, the last item on the agenda is the discussion of the neighbor petition regarding the North Street Bridge project. And Lee Gherkin is here. And I think you have a little presentation for us. And thanks to everybody that showed up and all the comments and the outreach. It's been helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for your time for selectmen, selectwoman, select person. We're shown on the agenda today as a neighborhood, a local resident issue. And right now we have about 320 signatures. That's growing quite rapidly by the day. Those signatures come from all over Greenwich. And they're coming from residents, from schools, from businesses. As you know, there are 8 schools in the Yes, within 1 mile of the bridge and within 1 mile of the choke point at the stoplight at Parsonage Road and North, there are 8 schools with 7,000 students. And so these students are coming from all over Greenwich. And of course, North Street's a major traffic artery for the town. So this is very much an issue for the entire community of Greenwich. And Zach Warren is going to walk us through a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Zach. Good morning. Thank you for the time today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Sure. Zach Warren. I live on Hillside Drive and have a son at North Street School, about the street. So thank you all for the time and the opportunity to relay these serious concerns on behalf of the many residents and stakeholders of Greenwich. And as Lee said, we have hundreds of signatures and growing. So the goal today is to raise a few specific issues and provide our recommendations on behalf of the entire community after spending a lot of time talking with everyone here. So we believe the North Street Bridge project should be delayed in order to provide more time to address the many outstanding concerns related to safety, schools, residents, traffic congestion, the construction timetable, water drainage, emergency services, the neighboring properties, businesses, and the economic issues here. And we think that going forward with the plan as it stands today would be just a complete disaster for the community. So starting with the conclusions and recommendations, they're as follows. Traffic. We need to conduct an independent study, not only account, but we need to evaluate and manage the traffic flow during the construction, including the safety of the side streets and the residential areas that are not meant for this high volume of traffic. Especially at peak flow times, we need to identify alternative routes. The construction timeline. WMC needs to be tasked with completing the construction of the bridge in a significantly shorter timeline. And if they can't, we should find someone else that can. Communication and coordination with the essential services. So that's the emergency vehicles, healthcare, schools. We need a comprehensive plan with input from the heads of the emergency services and the school officials to schedule vehicle flow during construction to mitigate this traffic disruption. So as Lee mentioned, there are 8 schools and over 7,000 students in the immediate area, and water drainage. So we need to ensure that any bridge design will accommodate future stormwater infrastructure improvements in the Brothers Brook drainage area. We need to develop a plan to address those improvements, and we need to commit to a timely schedule for funding in the town budget. And we're seeking funds from the state and federal, like we're doing for this bridge. You go to the next slide. So we spent months researching this and listening to the people of Greenwich, and we have these recommendations were developed in coordination with those residents, and these are consistent concerns within our community. So if we move to traffic congestion on slide 5, the closure of one lane is extremely problematic. And it seems unlikely to work. So just by closing one lane, you reduce capacity by 75%. So half for the lane closure and half for the alternating traffic. So the current plan of one lane being remained open with the signal light, we just think is highly unlikely to work. It will result in drivers randomly seeking alternative routes. Like up Hillside Drive, where Greenwich Academy students are walking up and down the street. There are no sidewalks, and it's going to be dark soon during rush hour. There are no lights, there are no speed bumps, so we really need to address this. What is the daily traffic on North Street? So DPW is using a count of 7,000 cars a day. That's from 2020. During the pandemic, there were no cars on the road then. That count is absurd. We actually, it took just a few minutes to go on this Connecticut DOT data site and find data from August of this year, which shows the average annual daily traffic is 9,500 cars a day. And that's just the average. So there were many times where peak traffic was over 13,000 a day. And also, the CTDOT states that alternating lanes of traffic should not be used for average daily traffic volumes in excess of 8,000 vehicles a day. So it's clearly not best practices. Everyone here already knows that traffic is already building on North Street, and that's at all times a day. Moving on to the emergency vehicles and public safety, it's slide 8. So by closing one lane, I think the DPW has stated that it must remain open for emergency services. We think that actually assures that, they won't be able to go through it. So, just looking at the last picture, the alternating lanes will not allow the emergency vehicles to pass. And in fact, the dispatcher will likely just reroute them around North Street. So why build a plan around an event that is likely to not happen at all? Further, supposedly emergency vehicles should not even be on this bridge to begin with. So the bridge has a 4-ton weight limit. Trucks that weigh in excess of that amount constantly go over the bridge. Fire trucks weigh 40 tons. That's 10 times that limit. So are we putting emergency workers at risk already when they already do so much for us just by allowing them to go over that bridge in the first place? Moving on to schools and parents. So the DPW website says there's one school within 0.9 miles of North Street Bridge, but we obviously know there are significantly more within just a slightly larger radius. We met with those schools representing over half of those 7,000 students, and they had little to no knowledge of this plan. They didn't know the details of the plan, and they certainly did not know the timeline of the plan being 18 to 24 months. One that we had spoken to thought it would just be 6 months, one school year, not stretching to 2 or more school years. So what will all this extreme traffic congestion mean for the school start and departure times? What will it mean for how long our students, our children are on those buses? And to reiterate Lee's point, these students, buses, parents, they come from all over Greenwich, not just this immediate area. It's not a D7, D11, D10 problem. It's everyone in Greenwich that is impacted by this. Moving on to construction time period, the current plan submitted by WMC, it's deficient. We're not sure that they're right for the job. They were selected as the low-cost provider for this project, and other firms. There were no goals in the WMC contract requiring the bridge to be constructed within the shortest time period possible. There were no goals about minimizing traffic disruption. There were no goals related to water drainage issues. Other firms actually did submit proposals that did contemplate a shorter time period, but they were not selected, and they were just maybe $20,000 more in terms of services. So we're very concerned that this 18 to 24 month time frame from WMC, could it be longer? Could it change to a longer time frame? That's a big problem for us. So we've actually spoken to an engineering firm. They need and they want to see the final plans for the preliminary designs. They believe they could do this in 2 months with the closure of the bridge for 2 weeks during the summer, keeping both lanes open. So we really need to explore this a lot further. And water drainage, so that's slide 14. The North Street Bridge, this is an integral part of the Brothers Brook drainage area. It includes Hillside Drive, Ridgebrook, Echo, North Street, Old Church, Plow. These areas are plagued with substandard infrastructure as studied and documented by the CDM Smith study for the town in 2022, and there was a public meeting on January 9th of 2023. CDM Smith, they identified 9 projects to address this vastly substandard infrastructure that provides water storage and management for hundreds of homes in this area and results in frequent and severe flooding for many residents. Is this bridge being constructed in a way to accommodate that study? We need to undertake a comprehensive plan that addresses those CDM Smith recommendations to remedy the insufficient infrastructure. The town would be remiss in only repairing the bridge without adjacent and connected infrastructure, and should come up with a plan to address and fund them in a timely manner. Otherwise, this new bridge will fail again. It's why it failed. We don't want to have to do this again. And further, state grants are being used for North Street Bridge. Greenwich is not even paying for it. So why not seek out state grants to do these other projects? These projects were recommended by CDM Smith from 2 years ago. North Street Bridge, if you look at the map, it is right in the center of these. They're the same project. So we should follow town policy and not do things in parts. It's part of the same project. They're already on list 3 of the capital improvements project. They should be moved up. So in summary, our recommendations are traffic, conduct an independent study to determine what the real flow is of traffic, where they'll go, how many people are impacted, what safety measures need to be put in place, like speed bumps, lighting. We're currently initiating a process for a traffic count, but we don't need a count. We need an actual plan and flow. We need to proactively work with leaders of emergency services to develop a plan during construction to explore options that don't require one-lane closure. Rerouting those vehicles over the construction site that's already unsafe and deficient. On schools, there must be an overall plan that's developed with the schools, with parents, students for pickup, drop-off. There needs to be time for parents to be informed of all these issues. The schools need to have time to fully understand the proposal and how to react to it, including those things. We need to extremely address the construction time period. The DPW's current 18 to 24-month construction period and alternating traffic lanes, as proposed by WMC, it's an ill-conceived plan. It's totally unnecessary. And as I said before, we've had multiple meetings with major engineering firms, with global offices, and they know bridge characteristics well. They have a bridge division, and they believe that the construction can be done in a significantly lower time period. We need a second opinion if necessary. Okay. So this is slide 18. So we need a second opinion if necessary, and hire a different engineering firm if WMC can do it. And on water drainage, we need to ensure that any bridge design accommodates future stormwater infrastructure improvements. We must commit to a timely plan to address, fund, and complete the recommendations from that study of CDM Smith, including making an effort to seek funds from the state and federal programs, and move those projects that we already know that we need to do up further on the priority list. Thank you.
Zach, thank you so much, and Lee, and everybody else that I've been speaking with over the last few months. Some great points were raised there. And I agree with a lot of it. And so I did have a meeting, a brief one, at DPW. We went over some of these things already that you've mentioned. And I agree about the traffic study. And I think that was it's not, 7,000 is way too low. So getting this all updated. And I think going forward, because our emergency services personnel in the chiefs have spoken on that too, and they are concerned about closing the road completely for a case of emergency. So I agree. I think that having them there to go over, and you listen to their concerns and they listen to yours, and they're going to have it now. They have most of it already, but this is extremely helpful, I think. And I don't know, as you know, I pulled this off the agenda for the BET. And I think some of these recommendations are terrific. But again, I don't know if anybody from the department wants to comment, but I don't know if anybody else, did anybody else sign up?
We have several speakers.
Okay, can I ask if there's several speakers, if you've heard your point already mentioned, if you could rather just pass on it so we don't hear that, because we do have an executive session meeting coming up. So if you've heard it already, I'd ask that you not speak, but if your point hasn't been raised, please do. Jim Michael?
Jim Michael, Deputy Commissioner of Public Works. One thing that we just finalized in the last 24 hours is we're going to be having another public meeting. That meeting is going to be held on Monday, October 7th at 7 p.m. And it'll be in this room. And it will also be hybrid, so it'll be set up that way. So
thank you.
We're welcome to, we'll be addressing these and many of the other comments that we've been hearing during that meeting. But, and if other people have comments concerning that, they can forward it to our Public Works at greenwichct.org email address, and we'll add those to our presentation.
And what is that email again for people?
Publicworks at greenwichct.org.
Publicworks at greenwichct.org. They do get back. I've been yelled at because I sometimes don't always give that out, and I start calling myself directly, so it's a little easier, so. And also, you'll have my number if there's anything else you want me to pass on there. But that gives us almost a month to incorporate some things, and also I get, reach out to emergency operations and all the
Yeah,
police.
we actually talked with them this morning, and they're looking to send a representative to that meeting as well, so that there
Great.
will be somewhere there.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Okay, Ken.
Yes, Mr. Alexander?
Yes, Peter Alexander, a licensed landscape architect, and I'm very concerned about the project's ability to affect downstream flooding. Excuse me, that my HEC-RAS analysis says that we'd have a fluctuating water table at the Greenwich High School as a result of some of these activities. And I'd like to be able to put in an independent opinion on the CDM Smith surveys as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
I apologize if I get anyone's name incorrect. John Simone?
Morning, John. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
Thanks for your time today. I won't spend too much time because I don't want to repeat everything that Zach and Lee just said. Thank you for that, by the way. That was very thorough. I agree with everything they said. I would just add two questions. One is, I'll pose a question. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we would spend time and resources building a throttle on the North Street Bridge instead of actually allocating those resources and time towards completing the CDM study and then actually addressing the downstream drainage issues instead of just, putting a sheath over the bridge and, sometime we'll get to it down the road without any real clear plan that has been presented as of yet. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It seems kind of illogical. My hope would be that we would rethink this, complete the study, fix the downstream drainage so that we don't have to build a dam and then potentially create more of a problem for everybody upstream. And when I say everybody upstream, I mean, my community, I'm a neighbor of these guys here. I live in the Echo Ridgebrook Hillside community. So that's one point. The other, if I can remember my thought, sorry. I've lost it.
Just send me a text.
I'll text you later.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it. I'd
Thank
love to see the bridge replaced. We know it needs to be replaced. Obviously, it's structurally unsound. It needs to be done. I think everybody supports that. Just need a better plan. Right now, the plan doesn't seem like it's fully baked.
Thank you, and I know DPW was writing down what you were saying there, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. God bless you.
Maya Tiatio?
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm Maya Tikio. I live adjacent to the bridge site, and I sent letters to all of you kind of outlining my thoughts, and obviously it was well covered in the presentation. The only two additional things I just want to mention that I think is important is that very few people know about the project. Every person I've spoken to has said, what bridge? And so I'm concerned about just making sure that I don't have a view on whether or not it will impact other people, but I would like everyone to have the opportunity to think about whether or not it will impact their commute to school, to their businesses. It will impact my everyday life. I'm in and out all the time. I've got 2 children. It will materially impact my life if it's one lane. And so I think that it's important to consider the fact that a bridge that is literally the length of my Toyota Highlander would take 2 years to rebuild. There must be a solution that would not create the level of traffic that will take place if it's one lane for 2 years. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, and thank you for your thoughts.
Okay. Breha Smith?
How are you? Thank you for your time. I'm going to be brief. I want to thank Lee, Zach, and my neighbors for their concerns. I think they make excellent points. Mine is about safety, and it doesn't need to be addressed today because there's going to be a new plan, I'm sure. But when the plan does come, because the bridge does need to get redone, I would like to know what police presence we will have in the surrounding neighborhoods to maintain safety and speed of inconvenienced and frustrated drivers. We have a lot of children, a lot of families, a lot of walkers, no sidewalks. I'd like to know what police presence will be there to maintain especially safety. But we can address that when the new plan comes out.
Thank you. Yeah, no, to that point, I mean, our police force of 152 is out there spread over 67 square miles. They do a great job. They can't be everywhere at the same time. However, you mentioned a couple things there, like sidewalks. And DPW has this rule, and we just did a successful one in Old Greenwich. They don't always end up that way, but if you can get 75% of the people to agree on a sidewalk, that's always an option to,
I'm not, I understand that. I'm
Yeah,
not
so I mean, but
advocating.
there are other options that you could look at too. Again, not all neighborhoods get to that. They sometimes disagree about it. But we saw a very good effort in Old Greenwich that they got it done, and they're super happy over there.
I'm not advocating for sidewalks. I'm
Okay.
advocating for a short-term solution during the project that we have an increased police presence to maintain speed and safety. A plan for that.
During the,
Yes,
gotcha,
during the project.
gotcha.
Perfect,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Can I just add something about the communication? Because we hear that like all the time for different projects, and maybe it would be helpful, the audience, if you went to that same email address that Fred communicated. Where do you consume information? Like, where would you expect to see a notification? Because we do social media, it's in the paper, it's in your, weekly community connections, and clearly that's not working. So I would just be curious as a marketer, that's my other hat that I wear in my life. Where do you consume information? Where would you expect to be notified? Is it snail mail? Like, that would be super helpful.
Good point, thank you.
Mr. Quigley, I believe you're next.
Morning, Peter.
Good morning. That's going to be my inaugural to the Board of Selectmen. I'm usually speaking to the Planning and Zoning, the Department of Public Works, the Flood and Erosion Control. I have been a resident at 74 North Street for almost 20 years there, which is a stone throw from the North Street Bridge. I will say that I began my journey, I don't mean to be too long here, but you need to know my background of the years I've spent on this particular topic, and usually given 3 minutes in the RTM. You don't know the years I've spent on this issue here.
I do.
You are in a major, serious FEMA flood zone area that floods not just upstream, but floods downstream all the way to what the problems are at the high school, but now down into Millbrook, okay? I think there's been very poor planning on the drainage, the stormwater issues in this town, and at this site particularly. And you may have seen, I'm now turning to letters of the editor. I won't get into that, but if you're interested, give me a call back. But you'll find 2 letters to the Greenwich Free Press, one on the tipping point of the town, overbuilding and not having the capacity to take rainwater, stormwater, away from the sewage in this town. The overbuilding, the impervious surface is unbelievable. Now, at this particular site, I've been at it for 15 years, 5 terms RTM. I was on the first Harbor Management Commission, just left the RTM, having come back after being away for about 4 years. I am not Dan Quigley, by the way, I'm Peter Quigley, and I currently live in an apartment on Field Point Road. I brought a map, I'm going to leave now, 3 quick points. And as Mr. Carmelo knows, we've tried to get together with all town departments to discuss for an hour some suggestions that several people that have been outside experts have been just trying to have a workshop session with town departments to discuss this issue of flooding and the mix of stormwater and sewage. If you think there's a problem in town, I'll demonstrate the number of POCDs and the recent studies that indicate flooding is the #1 issue in the town. At this particular point, you've got to have some very thorough studies done. You're changing the direction, you could be changing the direction of the flow of West Brothers Brook, which together with East Brothers Brook is the 3rd largest watershed in town. You have 7 or 8 watersheds in town. Mr. Camillo has this map. If you don't understand the water flow in this town, It's in, I think it's in your office, Fred. It's downstairs in the basement.
It is.
But the water that flows down into Long Island Sound is incredible in this town, and it's not being managed. Let me come back again. I'll leave this. I'm not Vanna White here, but this thing is available down in your GIS department. First, I think it's been poorly planned. I don't think you necessarily have the capacity to take any more build-out, and particularly a bridge probably should be reinforced and not rebuilt. You shouldn't be touching the footprints of these places. It probably needs to be rebuilt. You maybe need to deal with restrictions on the tonnage that goes over that bridge that breaks it down. But you cannot, without really tough study, understand the flow. If you see it here, it's like 90-degree turns at this point. It's really serious, and it's going to flood upland and downland if you don't do it right. So it needs a very thorough, from inside and outside, town experts to make sure whatever you do there is going to provide the proper drainage and that's not increase the serious flooding going on in Echo Lane area where several of these neighbors are, and down in the area that I lived, although I was in a little bit of a more protected zone on 74 North Street. I might suggest, after the 15 years, that this town puts together a watershed council. You need more than engineered solutions to deal with this problem. And when you look at the Flood and Erosion Control Board, they've been here for 70 years. Do you think flooding, storm drainage, is being effectively handled when suddenly one of my letters of the editor was called Black Swans, when suddenly the DPW has to come forward and ask $95 million to deal with a grass iron sewage plant? What do you think happens when it rains and storms? Where do you think that stormwater, rainwater goes? It has to go into the sewer system. I'll leave you only with the thought, I think there needs to be some clear thinking on a watershed council, possibly the name change to what is called the Flood and Erosion Control Board that was created back in 1956 for Hurricane Carol. The conditions today with the build-out going on in the impervious surface, you're not going to be addressing several of these isolated problems without dealing with the stormwater and the drainage issues. I'll leave you. Thank you very much. Sorry.
No, thank you very much, Peter. And I know you've been on this for, you were involved in the study back in 2010, where I think they said to fix the whole problem for the town was about 300 million back then, which is more than that now.
As Harry Fisher knows, I have, for the last 15 years, been suggesting, back 12 years ago, bonding, not funding, but bonds. You know, you put, rather than 300 million, you put 10 or 15 million dollars together over 10, 15 years, you're now getting to the problem. So it required bonding. Bonding seems to become a little more popular
I know,
these days.
I know, you're 100.
Seems to become a little more popular, but you've got a plan for, this is a 30-year project, by the way. This isn't something you just suddenly do.
Yeah, and not to draw this out, I mean, when you fix one area, right, they call it, moving the puddle, right? You expand the pipes and the drainage, but it's going to go somewhere else. So you really have to have a comprehensive plan, which is what that study you were involved with. It was 300 million then. It's probably a lot more now. We were able to channel some of the ARPA money a few years ago to some areas where we think it's going to really mitigate it. But that's, the town is 60,
they're
60,
targeting
70.
these areas, which is what's got to be done. It's a combination of engineered solutions and other things. The drainage manual is what's called low-impact development. You need to include those techniques. You need to start to think about holding areas for when the rainwater occurs, but that's upland.
Yeah.
It's not at the North Street Bridge area, because you're just going to push all of that down into Millbrook. They're already putting equipment in to monitor, so they'll now have very specific information on the town as to what is being flowed down into the Millbrook Association. So starts upland, basically, starts with other experts outside of engineered solutions that the town has. So I leave you with a thought. Always happy to discuss any questions anyone might have.
And he is, yes. Thank you, Peter. And that is something that every mayor and first selectman I speak with, that's one of the 5 or 6 things that bothers them is their infrastructures are outdated. The road infrastructures are over 100 years old, was never meant to withstand the kind of development this town has had. So Peter's right, when impervious surface appears, that water is gonna go somewhere. So, but we are where we are, right? We can't, there was a couple houses where I suggested, the only way to fix the problem there is to buy them out and put a retention pond there, and that would have worked, but obviously you can't do that, because then it sets a precedent, and it wouldn't be funded, and it's not my call. But certainly, we have to deal with the problem, as you said, strategically, and look to every single part of the town is impacted by this now. So, and that's why we fight. I have to mention it. We have to fight mandates from the state government for building things and things that are harmful with one-size-fits-all solutions that will not work here and that will exacerbate the problem in a big way. But anyway, so we're going to move on. We're going to move on. Peter, Peter, we have more speakers. We
have
really
several
got.
more
I'll let you go,
speakers.
but one point to that state mandate 830G. You also have an MS4 permit for stormwater, okay? And when you're not separating the stormwater from sewage, it's illegal. You have a law that's illegal, illicit. You have 2 laws that are clashing together. You should be aware of that.
Okay.
You're going to have some real problems with it.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Okay, I'm very sorry, I can't read this name very well. Peter Galdry? Is that what this is? Golden? No, yes, please. I'm sorry. My apologies.
You did it on purpose.
Thanks very much. I live
Thank
at
you.
1 McPherson Drive across from Myatikio and slightly closer to the North Street Bridge, and a lot's already been covered. My question now is really, and I think maybe one of you can provide an answer, is like the process by which this is being managed. There was a reference to a new public meeting. Is that sort of the next step, and otherwise it's unclear as to how the next steps will unfold, or are we in a process that's on a track and there needs to be a decision to take us off of a path, or, just trying to figure out where we are in
Clarification,
the
yes,
process.
that's very good, very good question. So, bless you. So we had talked about doing this after I met with Northeast Granite Association about 2 months ago. And so that's been scheduled now. We're gonna try and do it in September, but it's gonna be for October 7th at 7 o'clock here. And what you heard today, and I think Jim Michael alluded to it, is a lot of the stuff research has been done, I think is correct, and there's some really good recommendations in there. So, and I did pull it off the agenda. So this is gonna be redone. I don't know what it's gonna look like, but certainly a lot of the stuff's gonna be incorporated, and there's gonna be a lot more voices, including, other departments in on this. And what people, may not even be aware of, someone mentioned that this bridge, that people didn't even know about it. I've been going over that my whole life, and, for years, I didn't even know there was a bridge there. And this isn't the only project. We have a state project in Millbrook that's slated to be over a couple of years. We fought to get funding for the bridge reconstructions on the border of Portchester to help with the Byram River flooding, which has been going on for 100 years. There were houses floating down the Byram River in 1955. That has never been fixed. We're getting $35 million, but that's going to be 4 to 4.5 years in length. So Congressman Himes and I are constantly meeting with Army Corps of Engineers to see if we can somehow, push that up a little bit. And there's a lot that's going into it. They're historic bridges, but we're trying to push it up a little more because we have that going on. We have Millbrook, we have this, we have a new school that's not too far from there being built. A lot going on. So I think it's not just this one project that we have to think about, the other ones. And I think you've heard some of your neighbors, specify what's going on and why we have to keep everything in consideration when we're doing this. So you will see a different plan.
Okay, I appreciate that color. I think the one thing that seems to be difficult to manage is the traffic counts. I mean, if you've got guidance saying that the threshold is 8,000 cars a day and we're well over that, then there just has to be a different plan. It seems like you agree, and I do appreciate all of your efforts, especially on these bridge issues.
Yeah, no, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you for your comments.
Again, apologies. Dick Schulze?
Hello, Dick. How are you? Good to see you.
Thank you very much for your attention to this issue. I think you have to bite the bullet and stop this project for at least a year because there's a lot of discussion about the project, but we're going to keep procrastinating and the project is going to go forward. So I would suggest that you Board of Select people stop the project for a year, and within that time, get an alternative consultant who pays attention to the issues that were raised. One of the issues that the DPW says they have no responsibility for is determining an alternative traffic flow, which was very well pointed out in the study that the presentation that they made. The DPW has to pay attention to that. And by delaying the project for a year, it'll permit or hopefully avoid a conflict with the Millbrook area project, which is going to just really exacerbate the problem. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dick. Appreciate it.
Hopefully?
Can
Oh,
I
I'm
just-
sorry.
Maybe just to answer a question, if we were to delay it a year, what does that do to the funding that we're getting from the state?
Yes.
We don't have to answer it today. And then another major thing that I'm involved in, being on the Central Middle School Building Committee, that's another thing that we have to put into the equation because we break ground in December of this year.
Yes, which some RTM members and Susan Fahey has been very good about reminding us about all these projects at once.
Hi, Fred. So I'm Hope Foley. I live in Millbrook, and I'm the Lakes chairperson for Millbrook. I see on your frequently asked questions there, you make reference to the Route 1 bridge, which obviously in Millbrook we're pretty concerned about. Just so you guys know, I mean, that at a minimum is going to reduce traffic to one lane in either direction by Greenwich High School for at least 14 months at a minimum. And if you guys try to do both these bridges at the same time, this town is going to come to a standstill. So that needs to be like fully fleshed out and understood. The other thing that I would point out along with that traffic is that when that Route 1 bridge goes on, if it goes on at the same time, Millbrook is going to be closed to traffic. It's not going to be allowed as a cut through. It's a private neighborhood. We have electronic gates. No one's getting through Millbrook to avoid the traffic, just so everyone's clear on that. And then just, in terms of the downstream analysis, I think there has to be a really, really thorough downstream analysis because we're already looking at getting 3 times the volume of water that we currently get when this Route 1 bridge goes through. And the thought that we're going to get more water coming out of the, changes to the watershed, that's just not right. And as someone, I think Mr. Quigley referenced, we are putting in a monitoring system, so we will be able to monitor the new flows that come into Millbrook, whether it's from changes caused by the North Street Bridge, whether it's caused by the Route 1 project, but that's something that we're very aware of, that we're going to be looking to monitor, just to understand. So, we want to work with the town. We understand that the Route 1 project is CT, DOT, but, obviously this is also adding to our list of concerns and we're feeling, pretty under siege. So just wanted to be heard.
Thank you, Hope.
But also concerned about the traffic. So thank you.
And thank you for your continued advocacy and communications on it. Yeah, it's one of those things why people talk about infrastructure, and these debates went back, I remember, in the 1980s when John Marganet was first selectman. Infrastructure debates were going on with the finance board back and forth. And you got to stay on top of it, and you have to, monitor things, as Hope was saying, because all of a sudden things happen all at once. And the bridge that Hope's talking about, the state told us it's one step away from imminent field status, right? So.
Yes, although That is not the justification
Right, but I'm just, right. But I'm saying, so God forbid there was something like that, which is always within the realm of possibility, then you have no choice. Then you're fixing right away. So you want to avoid that at all costs. And so that's why proper planning and a comprehensive plan, I think, is always the way to go with this.
We have one speaker over Zoom, but they did not sign up in advance. Shall we
Yes.
Okay. Eric, I'm going to allow you to speak. Just unmute yourself.
Oh, Eric.
Eric, you're still muted? Perhaps Eric left. But, Eric, if you can unmute yourself, you are recognized to speak.
Or you can call me and I'll put the phone up to the speaker if you're there. If maybe he's not there.
Oh, he is unmuted. All right. Eric, you may proceed.
Thank you. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Millbrook Owners Association. Hope Foley, who just spoke, is part of the team within the association that's been concerned, has been alluded to by prior speakers, regarding the flooding, existing flooding in Millbrook and the state's proposal to significantly widen the Route 1 bridge. And we've been dealing, I think as Fred and others know, for over 2 years trying to get a satisfactory solution to addressing this problem. And I mention it here because obviously West Brothers Brook, which is the North Street Bridge project, is one of the two watershed areas that come into Millbrook. We have East Brothers Brook or Strickland Brook that comes down next to Hillside, and West Brothers comes in as well, just at the top of Millbrook. So we've tried for 2 years plus with the state to get a satisfactory resolution, primarily consisting of our request to have an accurate current study of the watershed in terms of the current flows and what we can anticipate once the bridge is widened. And we've made this point repeatedly in terms of them not using current data or stream flow analysis upon which to base the analysis. My understanding of the Route 1 project, the North Street project, is that it was put on hold in order for a consultant to study the balance of the watershed below, including going through Millbrook. So I don't know if the results of that have been released yet. Obviously, if it doesn't show a satisfactory condition, it would be premature to release flood flows from upstream of the North Street Bridge. So we'll continue to work with DPW before this next meeting coming up on October 7th to see what information could be shared with us. But we've retained a consultant, a professional engineer with specialization in watersheds, flood flow analysis, and he's confirmed and made his professional opinion that the existing analysis is not adequate, that it's flawed. So hopefully the consultant who's working on North Street, I know they've been to the Millbrook properties. I don't know what the extent of their analysis is or what data they're actually going to take into consideration when determining whether there will be an adverse impact with the release of the big puddle behind North Street down in through Millbrook. And obviously if the state proceeds with its project, that's a plan A, plan B kind of a situation, because if it does go forward, it's a different kind of analysis. And if it doesn't go forward, then it's, again, a separate analysis to consider for the North Street Bridge. So as Hope alluded to, we have installed stream flow monitors that will cover both West Brothers and East Brothers Brook because we're not confident in the data that's being used. And at least this way, if problems as predicted do come about going forward, we'll at least have a baseline to compare to. And we've offered with the state to engage a third-party engineer who could review the matter with us and not just accept our experts' opinion on it. And the state has turned us down on that and has ceased any communication going further on that matter. So we will pursue that, but I just hope that the North Street Bridge project is being analyzed with respect to current stream flows that are taking place today and not being based on other watersheds of a allegedly comparable nature. So with that, looking forward to further discussion, and we'll follow up with DPW. So again, appreciate your opportunity.
Thank you so much, Eric. And I'll try the Attorney General again and just see if the, get a sense of, what they're thinking about, if there's another way to go with getting an independent voice heard on that. I know it's been kind of difficult.
That would be definitely helpful. And I just point out the importance for this new data to be undertaken is when FEMA had mapped Strickland Brook up through Bible Street, the park area there, when an analysis was done on the Strickland Brook not too long ago, it was determined by a third-party consultant that the town hired that the flooding limits are substantially greater than what's on the books now with FEMA. So even the FEMA data has been proven to be outdated as a result of all the changes in the watershed. So relying on old FEMA data for the Route 1 bridge and analysis is equally flawed. So we're looking forward to hopefully a current live study on this watershed.
Bless you. Okay, thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
That's it. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. That was very helpful. A lot of information there to go forward with, but we appreciate it, and we will get working on it.
Could I make a few comments?
Sure.
All right, thank you. Thank you. So I want to just thank everyone for their input, and two more thanks are in order. Mr. Quigley, I'm glad that you raised the role that the Flood Erosion Control Board plays. We know that there are several seats open on that body. It is not a First Selectman or a Board of Selectmen committee. It comes under the RTM, but if I can make a plug and say if anyone is interested in serving, please come forward and we will help make sure that your information gets to the RTM. On that note, our First Selectman, actually, you have a seat on that as ex officio. I will offer my services if you ever want to delegate me. I do, from time to time, listen into their meetings. I have a civil engineering degree, so I'm qualified. So if you ever want me to sit in for you, I'm happy to do that. But I want to make that plug because I know that this is an important board in the town, and we really appreciate all of our resident volunteers who serve.
One second, Peter. One second, Peter.
I'm not.
One second, Peter. One second. So thank you very much for that. And we've talked about somehow firing up that board and reigniting it. I've had several conversations in the last couple of years on that. And we had even talked about that during the pandemic, about how we can use that flood and erosion control board better. And getting some more people on there with engineering backgrounds. So I definitely hear you on that.
Great. And then I just wanted to also thank our professional staff who have been working so hard on this issue. When I moved to Greenwich with my family, we moved into the North Street catchment. So I'm very familiar with this area. I understand all the concerns. But I have been attending all of the public information sessions, and they've been excellent. So thank you to our staff who've been working so hard on that. I know that when there is the next one on October 7th, we'll be paying close attention. But I did want to just sort of highlight that there's been some questions about the duration of the construction of this project and 18 to 24 months. My understanding was that that was an absolute soup to nuts. It wasn't necessarily the closure of the road. So I just want, I'm looking forward to some clarity on that. And like my colleague Lauren, I am very interested in what the grant requirements are, that we would make sure that we don't interfere with the funding that is coming to this town.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. Seeing no other business, is there?
Actually, we have two people signed up to speak under the public comment period.
On this issue, or?
No, on separate issues.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody who came for this.
Mr. Stillman, I'm passing out the material you gave me.
We're never getting into
We
that.
have a 1 o'clock executive session, so.
Yes.
I'll use all the time.
No, thank you.
Well, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
You probably remember that I've been communicating with you, Mr. Camillo, many times, and I've spoken with you about many things. I'm here because, wait,
No,
I'll just go on.
Hal Stillman.
Hal Stillman.
Hal Stillman. You got that?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Hal.
Right. So I reside at 84 Indian Harbor Drive, about 30 feet above mean high water, across from the Audubon Oneida Preserve, and 450 feet away is my residence from the rooftop of the W.R. Berkeley building on Steamboat Road. And since 2015, my neighbors and I have been complaining about the noise emitted from the rooftop air conditioning system, which exceeds the noise ordinance. And congratulations that the Board of Selectmen office now has responsibility for the noise ordinance. You're happy probably that I'm not talking about leaf blowers. So I've had very great difficulty enforcing the noise ordinance in this situation, and so I wanted to talk about that just briefly and then make a general case for how the noise ordinance should be revised. The rooftop of the building and the air conditioning systems are about 65 to 70 feet. They're tall systems above ground level. Intervening that, there's the slope down to the Audubon Preserve, goes across, and then it comes up the other side to five residences. At the northern end is the Bruce Museum, and south of that is the Bruce Park Playground. All nice places. But the noise from the rooftop emanates and fills the entire area. And it's perceptible more so at certain times of day and environmental conditions because of noise propagation is an issue. By the way, I'm an engineer. I've worked intensively with Argonne National Laboratory. My good friend there is the head of acoustics, and I've had him helping me understand exactly how sound propagates in the outdoor environment. And I've designed many air conditioning equipment, and I know that every manufacturer provides a handbook and guidance about how to control noise in a neighborhood so that rooftop equipment doesn't cause a problem. Now, that W.R. Berkeley building has no noise enclosure around it. It has two reflecting walls that, like a megaphone, direct the sound at you. It's exactly what happens, and it directs the sound at our houses. Here's the problem. If you look at your picture, you have that? The noise ordinance is pretty much written for the situation on the left. When a residence or a building installs an air conditioning or any kind of equipment on the ground outside their building and the sound crosses their property line. The ordinance says you measure the sound 1 foot past the emitters property line on the receiver's side. Makes sense, okay? It doesn't take into account, I mean, that's all it is. You're measuring the actual sound in dBs with a calibrated meter. So, yeah.
Good, just
That's
gonna
okay.
close the door.
So what's important is that property line is the real or imaginary line. It goes vertically upwards. And the noise ordinance says specifically you have to be standing at least 4 feet above the ground with this noise meter directed at that source. That's how our legal department in the town interprets it. Every noise measurement must be taken that way, regardless of the situation, which makes no sense for the case on the right. In the right, there are many buildings in town that have rooftop air conditioning systems that emit noise across the rooftop. In this case, it's set back from the rooftop. In the case of W.R. Berkeley building, for example, it's 50 feet back from the rooftop edge. So when you're looking at that dotted line, that designated spot does not get any noise. In fact, if you go there, you will not hear any noise in front of the building or in back of the building at ground level. Zero. The only noise you might hear is because it's blocked.
It's right to you.
Right. So there are lots of buildings around. I've been in other places, I see it. So I'm presenting a general case, unemotional about my current situation, but I want that resolved as well. So now, just an aside for a moment, I do have time. Planning and zoning, you have the noise ordinance now, requires a calculation predicting the noise at a property line of a building site to the nearest property line when you do new construction or install any kind of equipment, right? That shows that the sound at that property line does not exceed the noise ordinance. So they accept the calculation method. There are pretty much standard calculation methods that are well documented. I don't want to go into that. And there are modifications for that for specific situations where there are reflecting walls. Okay, but no matter. So that's for permitting. For enforcement, that calculation method is not included in the ordinance. Your legal department, and our legal department, insists that for the W.R. Berkeley building, you have to stand on the ground at their property line where you can't hear any noise from the rooftop, take the measurement. When you're up on the rooftop, Wendy Zhao from your department measured 77 decibels at the edge of the building. Project that further 70 feet to the building's imaginary vertical line, and you get over 69 dB at the line, which is way in violation of the noise ordinance. And yet she is prohibited by the legal department from using that calculation method for enforcement. Change the ordinance. My suggestion on the next page says, you know, the ordinance says there's general steps, so it gives you a little wiggle room. The fact is that the health department, when they were investigating my initial noise complaint in 2015, accepted the acoustic consultant's report from that building with a projection of the noise. But what they did is that they projected the noise to my property line, 420 feet away. And when I objected, they said, nothing. They accepted that. So it has to be at the property line. So the legal department doesn't interpret the property line correctly and doesn't allow the correct judgment to be applied when determining the noise measurement location. And that should change. So my suggestion, without being prescriptive, is just say, you know, a predictive method shall be employed when it's evident that the above measurement point, which is described 1 foot beyond the property line of the emitter's premises, will not provide an accurate indication of noise emitted across a property line. Why can't we just have some reasonable interpretation? So that would require intervention and discussion with the legal department and for whoever does the enforcement in your group.
Okay, I will take that up, Hal, with the law department and get back to you on that.
Okay, now may I add some other things? I'm available for further discussions if needed. I can get Dr. Ralph Mulheisen from Argonne National Lab, who is the U.S. leading expert on noise, to participate in any revision that you might want to the ordinance. Just before I go, we have a new lighting ordinance in town that is extremely detailed. This noise ordinance is really, really not nearly detailed enough.
Okay. Okay. I will.
Thank you.
We will get back to you. Thanks, Hal. Good to see you.
Kim, Ms. Kim Horlacher to speak on Valley Road.
Just briefly. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, First Selectman.
Hello.
Thank you, Selectwoman. Thank you, Select Person. Appreciate your time. And I appreciate everybody's help in this matter. Something does have to be done. We're all in agreement of that. My husband and I, Scott Horlacher, we are 73 Valley Road. It's the the Department of Public Works suggesting a stop sign which is right outside of our driveway. It's a direct impact. If you exit our driveway, we're right across from Cycle. If you make a right, the stop sign's going to be right there, across from Schofield.
Kim, point of clarification, because I know where you live. Is it there or is it like 25 feet down? Because I asked for that clarification because I wanted to know.
Yeah.
And so someone said it was 25 feet past where you are,
I-
which is still close.
It's close.
It's very close, yeah.
And
Kim's right at the bottom across from where the cycle shop is.
correct. It's about a block, half a block down to River Road Extension. Our concern is, obviously, we know we're in a mixed-use neighborhood, and obviously the cars and trucks are ascending down Valley Road very quickly. And, in regards to the suggestion on top near Nassau Place, having more detection for people to slow down. My husband and I, our concerns are getting in and out of the driveway, the noise, the emissions coming from the trucks. Obviously we have cars, trucks, Amazon trucks, UPS. We have people, they'll stop in front of our driveway and park, sometimes on our lawn. And we've watched it where the cars are just going by the trucks, because obviously there's no stop sign. But the other concern we have as well, just for safety reasons, because we're all in favor something needs to be done, and this is for everybody. But the cyclists come down on Valley Road as well, and if there's a stop sign, it's just not a natural, it's natural to go down Valley Road and even make a right on River Road Extension. It just seems like it's a natural flow. Where the stop sign is, it seems like they're going to be stopping. It's like putting a stop sign past Little Pub going down the Post Road. It just seems like you have to stop. So my concern is as well, entering and exiting our driveway, as well as cyclists coming down. When people stop, are they going to be paying attention to the right if somebody's coming down, flying by them? So there's just some concerns we have with.
Jimmy Santaguida had said pretty much what you're saying.
Yeah.
And also mentioned your house also, and said that Kim and Scott will get a little bit more. And just a couple thoughts. I mean, again, I know the area really well. I get you. I hear you on the emitting of, when something's stopped there, that's always a concern, right? Because the pollutants are being emitted. I do think, though, having grown up right around the corner where people are flying by all the time, and
Correct.
it was murder on Orchard Street getting out of the driveway. But if they are stopping there, right, and it will be backed up a little bit. We know that, but the whole point is to stop that flow where people are getting hit and nearly
Right.
hit. You may have a better shot if somebody's there looking at you, just letting you go, rather than they zoom by you. Because I had that was my experience on living there in Orchard Street. But I do get what you're saying about when they're backed up there. No one wants to have trucks and cars idling. But it's an issue. We have to do something. But but you coming here, that's why we do second reads. So I'm glad you did, and I know Jimmy feels the same way as you.
Yeah. Well, everybody, like you said, everybody's affected differently, and but it is a direct impact where we are. And the noise does start very early on our street with trucks coming down. It's at 3:30, 4 o'clock. I know what time it is. I know what time it is, 6 o'clock in the morning, and, so.
That's coming from, I know, we know where
It's
that's coming
nothing
from. Yeah.
personal.
No, it's not, no,
I don't want
and-
anything.
No,
We're
I know.
Not here to be.
But it's not, I just don't want people who may be listening to think that it's tractor trailers are coming there at 4 o'clock. It's a brief, but you're right. And that the problem, again, that is a particularly crazy one because that intersection doesn't line up. And
I
it was
know.
always been crazy. And so if it lined up, it would be a little bit easier. But I think DPW left here, but I'll So I have to meet with them anyway, so I'll mention this.
It's also too, the heavy trucks coming down, are they gonna be able to stop, the big box trucks? I mean, really have to stop quickly. And I just,
Well, we're gonna warn, I know there's gonna be signage
Yeah.
warning that. You hate to put a lot of signs up, but there will be warning signs.
and we have a lot of lighting around us as well. Grateful, all of our neighbors, we work together and we help one another out. I had one incident, though, prior, person that owned a building. My house was lit up, it was lit up till 1 o'clock at night. And it's been fixed. And it was, a neighbor to neighbor, which everybody, we've got great neighbors. We're all here to work with one
Well,
another.
it used to be, right?
Yeah,
It used to be that way.
absolutely. So we just have some concerns. There's still, the street is one-way, it's single lanes, and there's not a lot of room if somebody has to get out of somebody's way. If somebody's, so there's just a lot
Yeah,
of
to your point, I know
concerns of
DPW is
safety.
reaching out to take out some of those spaces where they're parking there for that
Correct, down
reason.
further.
And that's the reason why, one of the reasons why we took it off the agenda today, because I wanted to make sure everybody was contacted to be
Yes.
aware of it, and they hadn't gotten a hold of everybody yet, so.
Okay.
I sent them another note about that. And as you heard today, they're, I don't know how they do everything, it's crazy, but
Yeah, I feel like this is,
you got,
so minor compared to.
you need an aspirin now, right?
Yes, yes. Well, thank you, and thank you for everything.
Thanks, Kim.
Everybody does. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Lauren Rabin, so moved.
Janet Stone McWigan, I second.
All those in favor, Fred Camillo's a yes.
Lauren Rabin, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan, yes.
Look at that, Ken, 1 o'clock on the dot. Oh, we're already late.